On Monday, Trump posted a Memorial Day message to Americans by saying Happy Memorial Day to all, including the scum that spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country through warped radical left minds. Then he continued to say that many of the 21 million illegals who entered our country during that time were criminals, mentally insane, murderers, drug dealers, rapists, gang members, and released prisoners. Critics quickly point out that not only is Trump's same old propaganda of dehumanizing immigrants getting stale, but also that Memorial Day is not about immigrants or Democrats, but for honoring those who died in service. The next day, Trump moves to cut $100 million in federal contracts for Harvard. This is just one of many attacks Trump has taken in order to get Harvard to comply with his executive orders that addresses what he calls the woke and anti-Semitic issues on Harvard's campus. Harvard has already sued and will continue to fight because even though Harvard admits that they do have problems on campus, like every other school on earth that embraces free speech, in this case, Trump is beyond the pale. A professor elaborated on this point by saying, double parking is a problem at Harvard too, but we don't start executing people who double park. Then on Wednesday, a federal court blocks Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The federal court was made up of 3 judges, 2 of whom were appointed by Republicans. One was Ronald Reagan, and the other was Trump himself. The judges ruled against Trump because tariffs must typically be approved by Congress. So Trump tried to use the Emergency Powers Act to implement his Liberation Day tariffs, but the court found that his use of the act exceeded the limits of the law. Trump's team responded by saying that they remain committed to using every lever of executive power to address this crisis and restore American greatness. So most likely the Trump administration will appeal this ruling, and this case could ultimately make its way to the Supreme Court. The next day, Trump posts on social media that he's on a mission from God and nothing can stop what is coming. Most likely this is in response to the federal court blocking Trump's Liberation Day tariffs the previous day. However, later in the day, an appellate court temporarily allowed Trump to continue collecting tariffs while he appeals the trade court's decision. Trump supporters see this as a win, and that Trump is indeed on a mission from God. But several lawyers have pointed out that this temporary decision is just a procedural step in the appellate process, and are confident that when it's all said and done, the block on Trump's Liberation Day tariffs will stand. Then on Friday, we learned that Trump is allowing a tech company, Palantir, to compile data on Americans. In March, Trump signed an executive order for the federal government to share data across agencies that would increase surveillance power over Americans. And today, the New York Times says that Palantir has been using its product Foundry in at least 4 separate agencies to organize, analyze, and merge data. This will make it easier for the government to create detailed portraits of each American and could potentially be used by the government to more thoroughly police anyone. Not only that, it will make Americans' personal information more vulnerable to hackers. Privacy advocates have already filed lawsuits to ensure that the government cannot weaponize people's personal information. And 13 former Palantir employees have signed a letter urging the company to end its endeavors with Trump. One employee recently quit because the company expanded its work with ICE. And in a recent statement, she said that up until recently, Palantir did a good job handling sensitive information, but now they've changed over the past few months, and she is quitting because they have crossed a red line. The next day, we learned that US immigration authorities are collecting DNA information into a criminal database. People arrested or convicted of a crime do have their DNA collected, but now all migrants' DNA is being collected and permanently placed in a database called the Combined DNA Index System, or CODIS, that will be used by all law enforcement across the country. Privacy advocates say that this is a massive expansion of genetic surveillance and an unjustified invasion of privacy, and that the government is using incorrect and harmful narratives of immigrants to expand their power. Finally, on Sunday, Trump reposts on his social media a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was executed in 2020, and that clones, doubles, and robotic engineered soulless, mindless entities are what you see. Most people by now know that Trump loves promoting conspiracy theories, which are typically perceived as Trump just trying to troll or distract. But scholars continue to worry and point out that this post is just another example of Trump's fascist politics.